Welcome to week 69, count it, week 69 of Shark Sports Radio. Alongside of me is Andrew Gifford. He goes by Giffy, yours truly, Mark Loisel Jr., aka Shark, right here in the Ocean State. We have another writer joining us for Page Turners, where we have the writer come on, join the pod, talk about their book, message behind writing it, and the impact on the sports world. Thank you all for taking a dive in the tank with us tonight. As always, you can tune in using your Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, and or Spotify app. Check us out on Twitter at SSR34_, YouTube at the Shark Sports Radio channel, and at the Shark Sports Radio Facebook page. So what's on tap tonight? We continue our new segment with page turners, as mentioned, and we also get into analyzing what happened in the NFL free agency thus far, now that the tampering period is over. But first, we are greatly appreciated and honored to be joined by former Sports Illustrated writer S.L. Price. He was a senior writer at Sports Illustrated from 1994 to 2019. He has written books, the most recent one, 2016's Playing Through the Whistle, Steel Football in American Town, a biography of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. And he is currently working on a book about lacrosse in America. Playing Through the Whistle can be purchased on slprice.com, Amazon, and Barnes & Noble. SL, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem. So your most recent book, Playing Through the Whistle, which was released in 2016, is a fascinating read to me. You wrote about the city and about how football is a passion driver, I would say, for the people there, even through severe hardship. And it reminds me of the movie Friday Night Lights, with people living in that town and living and breathing by football, and serious obstacles emerging at the same time. Like, from writing this book and your personal research, what was it about the sport of football that made this town gravitate towards it so much?
Well, first off, I should let you know that I purposefully, when I had not read Friday Night Lights. I still have not read it, because what I did not want to do is have that sort of influence, too much of what this is. Obviously, they're similar. I mean, it's about a football team that's sort of dominant in that in the county, Beaver County, Western Pennsylvania. I mean, what attracted me to the story was I first went up there for Sports Illustrated and wrote the longest piece I'd ever written for Sports Illustrated at the time. This was back in 2009, 2010, and at that point I wrote strictly, for the most part, about the football team and about how this is a town that had the largest steel mill in Western Pennsylvania. It is obviously Western PA is a steel belt. It's where essentially the Rust Belt, and where a lot of the decline of American industry happened and is still happening. That we're all dealing with the after effects still with that. And and Aliquippa is essentially the capital of Beaver County, and sort of emblematic of so many steel towns in Beaver County. I mean, and the fact is, football is the sport there. Everybody who knows anything about the NFL or college football knows, Joe Montana's from Western Monongahela. Dan Marino's from Pittsburgh. Joe Namath is from Beaver Falls. I mean, we can go on and on. Every town, Mike Lucci is from Ambridge across the river. But the fact is that, every town has one, maybe, for the most part. Great college player. Great. Aliquippa has 4 Hall of Famers. Like they had Mike Ditka, Tony Dorsett, Darrell Revis, and Ty Law. Meanwhile, they also produced Pete Maravich, the great Pete Maravich basketball player.
Yes.
Madonna's father, Henry Mancini, the 4-time winning Oscar-winning composer. It's this tiny town, 35,000 people at its peak, and today it's down to about 9,000. And yet it's a 1A school, which everybody can understand this. It's just been bumped up to 5A because they keep winning. They've got 30 to 35 boys in the senior class, and they keep beating up everybody because football is so massively important there. It was important back in the day with the steel mills because this was the place where everybody expressed themselves. The game itself, I would argue, really sort of replicates sort of the assembly line and the teamwork of a steel mill, the toughness. This is an immigrant town, so people were coming over and were used to incredibly hard work. And so their first title was in baseball, actually. And baseball was very big in the 40s. In fact, it was the day before D-Day that they won, and nobody really remembers it because it got wiped out by D-Day the next day. They all thought they were going to have on the front page of the paper. But football very quickly sort of overtook baseball and really became the expression of the town. And then when things went south, because after the steel mill went down in the early 80s, all work went, and when work leaves, all hell, breaks loose. And
yeah.
this town became not only, crack and gangs took over the town. But the one place, even with all that crime and all that distress, the one place nobody touched was the football stadium. And so you had this, because everybody there understood this is the way out now. This is the steel mill. Now the odds
are safe haven. Yeah.
Not only a safe haven, this is the path to success. And they had examples of it like no other place because of these incredible players who would come through there. So generation after generation had somebody they looked up to and frankly were probably related to in some way. And so football became even more the thing. Parents were pushing their kids into this in a way that is almost hard to understand. I was there from 2010 to 2016. And this is in the heart of the whole CTE, emergence of CTE, and everybody's talking about this disease that has hit ex-football players and middle class parents were starting to direct their kids away from football. In Aliquippa, they had 4 little league football, so to speak, levels: 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and then 10 to 12. All those in this tiny town, you had 70 kids coming out for each team, and there was a waiting list. Still, through all the CTE, and the entire time I was there, no one ever mentioned CTE and CTE sort of grew out of Pittsburgh. That's where the story began. Concussion. That's what it's based upon. And yet, here's this place in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh, 20 miles up downriver. And essentially, football was the way out. And so this is how people express themselves. And this is what the team really, where the town still to this day plants its flag proudly.
Yeah, so just to kind of piggyback off of, you had listed off some of the Hall of Famers that came out of Aliquippa, like obviously Mike Ditka, Ty Law, Darrell Rivas. Like, is it, and especially for a city that's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, but still having that kind of foothold in the local football landscape? Like, what do you feel like are all the attributes, or is it nature? Is it nurture that kind of gave, Ditka, Rivas, Ty Law? Like, what do you think it was about the town specifically, or some of the attributes from the town itself that made those guys so successful? And honestly, for all of those guys, tough, smart, obviously talented. You have to have some genetics involved. But what do you feel like they grasped from the town that they were able to then parlay that into Hall of Fame football careers?
Well, for a couple things. One is, and I say this with all due affection, and I'm not being snarky or anything. Aliquippa is the only place where I've heard people refer to each other as motherfucker as a term of affection. Okay? and what I mean, what I'm saying is, it's literally, this is a tough town. There was a saying, and by the way, that they welcomed me was one of the astonishing sort of developments of my career and life. And I look upon it not just because of the book, but because the people were so quality. There's a couple things. Mike Zmianek, the longtime coach there, once told me, he said, look, in this town, we don't stab you in the back. We basically turn your ass around, stab you in the chest so you can see us coming. And there's that attitude. Even Ditka, his father had a full-time job. His family was intact. He was pretty high up in the union, but so Ditka grew up comfortably, but he was crazy. And the town kind of made people crazy. Everything that happens in Aliquippa is outsized. It's big. Like you don't just. It's not just the steel mill. It's the biggest steel mill. It's not just football players. It's Hall of Famers. It's there's a level of achievement there that is expected. And the other thing is the kids are not coddled. If they lose, they come home and their uncles are yelling at them. Their parents, their fathers are yelling at them. This is not acceptable. It is. And so there's this level of expectation. That's cruel. That's tough. But their feeling is, hey, life was cruel and tough on us and we're coming. And that's the way it is. And so I will tell you that it's there. And the other thing is the level of pain in that town is incredible. What people have gone through. This level of suicide with the mill going down, unemployment, suicide, gun deaths, it's tough. And there's an honesty there because of that, because every family has been touched by it. Every family knows somebody who's either gone away or is no longer with us or got into trouble. And so as a result, there's this honesty about the tough times that people have gone through and about the hard things they've gone through. And it's hard for me to explain because it's the expectation is so high, but the toughness is ingrained in everybody, male, female, everybody. And the ones who can't make it at this point, like the other thing is, so you had the steel mill and you had fathers, by the way, also saying to these kids, hey, you're going to college. I'm working in the steel mill, so you don't have to. So you get your ass in school and go to college. I mean, Mike Ditka was going to be a dentist. He went to Pitt to be a dentist, and I think it was his mother said to me, can you imagine like somebody Mike Ditka putting his meat hook hands in your mouth? I mean, and so, but that's because and Dorsett, went down to see his dad. Tony Dorsett went down to see his dad at the steel mill. He came walking out, and his dad was so caked in soot he didn't recognize his father. And his father said, I'm working here. Don't you ever work here. And it was, there was this sort of glorification of mill work and steel towns and the whole blue collar thing that every politician's running after. But the fact is that it is dirty, brutal, often boring work. These parents were doing this not because they love their jobs. They did it because they were trying to give their families a step up. So there was just a level of reality there from the start. And like I said, it wasn't just Aliquippa. It's all these towns in Western PA. And frankly, all mill towns in Rhode Island and mill towns in South Carolina. And, this is not a unique story. It's an American story. And that's why I was so gravitated to it, because through these famous players, look, I know that, you tell a story about a small town, there are a lot of unfamiliar names. I was lucky because there are familiar names, just as you're about to get bored. And by the way, I'm Polish, okay? You get a lot of these consonants in these names. My mom's eyes were glazing over when she was reading the book. She's like, what? Who's next? But then you sort of relieve the reader because you tell them about somebody who they know, that they're familiar with. Either, again, like I said, not just the football players and basketball players, but also people like Henry Mancini and Jesse Steinfeld, the Surgeon General, who was against cigarettes. And the story of the Aliquippa 10, which was the basis of the Wagner Act. It was the test case, and which basically legitimized unions in America. So this place was for me a microcosm. 100 years of attitude basically is the story that you could have called this book, because this is a town that stood for a way of American life that has come and gone, and we're still dealing with the after effects to this day in Aliquippa and in the rest of the country.
Sure. Yeah. So just to kind of pivot a little bit, and I wanted to bring up this article that you wrote in 2018, because the subject matter, or not so much the subject matter, but kind of it's a little bit parallel